Hi everyone, I'm Reverend Jim Keat, digital minister at the Riverside Church. This is the Word Made Fresh, weekly video Bible study, sermon prep show, talk about the Bible, lectionary, liturgical stuff. You know, just keep watching. So this week, we were going to talk about the upcoming lectionary passage from Acts. It's a really interesting story about a girl who is possessed by a spirit, and she's annoys Paul, and so Paul gets annoyed by her, and he casts the spirit out, and then they get arrested. It's an interesting story. You should read it, but I made a video, but the audio wasn't working. Sorry. So we're going to try something different, and this is going to be kind of a part 2 from last week's video. I talked with Amanda Weisenheimer about the gospel text, John chapter 5, verses 1 through 9, I believe. At the time of recording that, we said we weren't preaching that text, but it turns out I did. I was preaching at our morning light service at Riverside, which I did this morning. I'm recording this on Sunday, and I recorded my homily. So you're going to just watch it. I hope. I mean, if you keep watching the video, that's what's going to play after I stop talking here. And you can enjoy. It's me reflecting on that text and Judge Judy, because why not? So here you go. Jesus and Judge Judy. Not to disappoint, but we will not be talking about cats in this morning's homily. However, I would like us to talk about 2 stories. One, the story we just heard read from the Gospel of John, a story about Jesus. And the other, the story about a judge you might know. This is a judge who definitely was very, very popular, I believe, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and still has a following today. The story of Judge Judy. Has anyone seen Judge Judy? All right, let's start with a little Judge Judy, then we'll talk about Jesus. So Judge Judy, as you likely know, has a TV show, or has had various TV shows. Her most famous or infamous one was simply called Judge Judy, and she would have different individuals come before her courtroom, and she would make decisions, and they would always remind us that the courtroom is real, the cases are real, the decisions are real. That's mostly true. The courtroom was less of a courtroom and more of arbitration, but those details aren't essential for this story. What's fascinating is Judge Judy's show was so popular, not just among people who watched it. There were times when there were more people watching Judge Judy every day than watching Oprah Winfrey. But Judge Judy was popular among the individuals who wanted to go to court for some reason. One example is a man we'll call Bruce. He ran his own business where he would rent out equipment for different events, concerts and sporting events, sound systems, all sorts of things that would be needed for various venues. And he had a contract from a man named Lenny, and he rented his equipment, got his equipment back, got a check from Lenny for the services he offered, and he took the check to the bank and he said, "Is this check ready to cash?" And the bank said, "Not today. Try again next week." Came back next week. "Is this check ready to cash?" "Nope, still not going to clear today." Came back the next week. "Can the check clear this week?" "Sorry, Bruce, there's not enough in Lenny's account to clear that check again. It's going to bounce again." Week after week after week, Bruce continued to have a check that bounced from the work that he did. So what were his options? He could take this up in small claims court. It was for about $3,000. So it was just a significant yet not exuberant sum of money. And Bruce had gone through small claims court in the past, the legal system, an actual courtroom. And the difficulty there is it's often on the burden of the plaintiff to get the defendant to get to court. So Bruce would have to get Lenny to come to court and all these things and get him in there and then make sure he's in the right place at the right time. And why would he have come? He's like, my check's going to bounce. I'm just going to stay in hiding. But say he could get him into court and say the judge finally did say, "You know what? You do owe this man $3,000. Well, that ruling still doesn't make it incredibly binding that you'll get paid, because the guy could still be like, "Well, okay, the judge said to pay you. Here's another check. Good luck." So small claims court wasn't really going to be a very rewarding system in this case. And that's where Judge Judy came in. Judge Judy's show works a little differently. On Judge Judy's show, if you win your case, you get paid. If the defendant defends themselves and they win, the defendant gets paid. You are guaranteed to be paid. Because on Judge Judy's show, it's not the defendant who is paying you. It's the show. Did you know that? All the money awarded out from the cases of Judge Judy are paid by the show. So Bruce was very eager to get on this show, and Lenny was too, because they're going to fly Lenny into Los Angeles. They're going to put him up in a hotel. He's going to be on TV, and at best he wins and is off the hook, and at worst he loses and the show pays the fee instead of him. So Bruce has his day in court. He shows before Lenny. Judge Judy hears the story, and she decrees in the favor of Bruce. And she says, you owe this man $3,000. You owe this man. So less than a month later, Bruce receives his check for $3,000 from the TV show Judge Judy. And the beauty of this story is, in a world where these small claims often go unanswered, where justice never seems to be done, here in the courtroom of Judge Judy, she sees these individuals and justice is done. He finally gets the money he deserves. Now, can you make the connections to Jesus yet? Jesus walks into this pool, a courtroom-like system that's supposed to heal the people. And here's a man for 38 years caught up in a system that's never getting him what he's owed. He's here to be healed, to touch the waters. This man who's been there for 38 years, but every time the water stirs, someone darts ahead of him and he can't make his way down to the pool to touch it and be healed. The system just isn't working. So Jesus steps in and says, I can solve this problem right now. We don't need to go through those hoops and big court systems. We can fix this here and now. And so Jesus does what Jesus does, asks the man to stand up, and the man is healed. Now that's likely a bit bigger justice than just Bruce getting his $3,000. This man who for 38 years couldn't walk, finally being able to walk. But the stories run parallel in a system that just isn't working, and finally here's an individual who makes things work for at least one person. Now, I'd like to take both of these stories a bit further, though. Let's go back to Judge Judy. Judge Judy is very big on responsibility. You have to take responsibility for your actions. You got to take responsibility. You did this. You're responsible. Yet it's interesting that the form that responsibility takes, there really isn't a punishment for someone who's guilty. They don't really have to have any sense of recompense made other than potentially being ridiculed on television. What kind of justice is it when all that's served out are checks from a TV show? Is that really justice? I mean, okay, so the individual who was wrong receives some recompense. But what about the person who did the wrong? Are they ever brought to justice for their actions? Are they ever reformed for the work they had done? Not really. Judge Judy's show, focused on taking responsibility, just has some rich patron cutting the checks. And so the show continues on. People are entertained. Individuals get paid, but is justice really done? Now back to Jesus. This pool is a whole system that people believe is the way to be healed. And yet, why can't they even make their way to the pool to touch those healing waters? And when Jesus sees this pool, he sees one individual. And for that individual, it literally changed his life. But Jesus, can you fix the system? Can you make it so that instead of stairs, there's a ramp to the pool so everyone who needs access can make their way to the pool? Jesus, I like that you helped this one person, but I would like it if you would look at the whole system that's just a little bit wrong and make the whole system right. Oh, it's an interesting sermon when you start preaching to Jesus, right? But this is what we're called to do as individuals. Yes, we should be those versions of Jesus and Judy who help the individual. But we need to always see the systems that are in need of fixing. Yes, help the person, but fix the system so we don't perpetuate the problems again and again and again. It's not an easy task. It's nice when we can just think, I'll help one person. And we should always do what we can to help every one person. But we must do the necessary and difficult work of looking at the larger structures and systems. Is justice being done? Can people make their way to the pool? Or are we just going to settle for as it is because it's too hard and too much work to change the actual structure and system? And it is very hard, and it is not easy at all. But I'll remind us, the reason we can do that hard work is because we do it together. Maybe that's the reality with Jesus as well. For all of his Jesus magic powers, changing a system takes more than an individual sometimes. You need those individuals perhaps to help organize and speak on behalf, but we need the community to work together. It's only when we work together as a community that anything of lasting difference will be done. So may we be individuals who always see those who need our help getting to the pool, those who need their day in court, and may we give them the justice they need. But may we always work as a community for the justice that goes deeper, the justice that goes longer, and the work of God that we are called to do this day and every day to come. Amen.